This park is just something to play on. It's not like playing in another ground. It's always going to be our home, so that's why it means so much to us.
When you come from nothing and you want to go somewhere, there's a bit of fight there. I think this joint's got it. We'd have been dead long ago had we not had that. Had we been a soft mob, we'd have thrown the towel in.
I suppose I hate to lose, and lots of people want us to lose, expect us to lose, but we ain't going to go away. So we're here for the long haul.
They're running it. Phelan, Meninga. Red will score, I think. He's in. That could be the one that wins it. Magpies has gone berserk.
First came to Davies Park in 1967 as a 10-year-old. All the boys came down to watch the footy one Sunday. It just instantly became part of my life.
My early memories were trying to find a spot where I could see the game, and it was impossible, so all the kids used to sit on the inside of the fence to be able to get a view because everywhere else was packed.
Whenever there was a big game here at Davies Park, I was here. I knew this place back to front. I knew the riverfront. We were spending half our time down along the river and on the jetty, and probably mostly we were on the field in between games and at half time just playing footy.
You've got to make your own fun when you come from the poor end of town. In the bush, you know, I mean, it was only cricket and rugby league, and if you had a quid, you probably had a tennis court, you know, but the southern end of town's always been for the battler.
I didn't fit in straight away, no, they made me coach pretty quickly, and so I had a bit of trouble fitting in. I tried to play and coach, but I couldn't do that very successfully. I decided rather than drop myself, I'd retire. So I retired halfway through the season. I don't think anybody missed me as a player.
I put my heart and soul every week in playing for this club, and I know a lot of other people do. You know, everyone should be, and it definitely does. It makes you want to be a better player, a better person.
When I was like any young kid, I got a good initiation here, you know. I met up with, like Greg Vivers was the first guy, and he gave me the nickname Chicken George because of my fetish for eating chicken.
I wanted to play 100 games and that was it for me. Something about the place got into my blood and I just stayed. The Queensland side and the State of Origin side looked great to have, but captaining South was probably up there as being my best moment.
And leading them out will be Bruce Haskell, their skipper. Yes, Bruce Haskell, captain of the Magpies.
Club football in Brisbane, rugby league in particular, was the #1 sport. A lot of people don't realise that Davies Park, being the headquarters, that's where all the big games of rugby union and rugby league were played. I'd rank it #1 most picturesque ground in Brisbane. It's nestled in the heart of West End, which is only a few minutes walk from the city centre.
When we'd play here, cars would be parked right up near the school. They'd be parked for miles and this ground would be packed. You couldn't get near the ground.
During the war years, South had a very colourful history.
We never used to play at Davies Park. Couldn't get near the place because the American Army, they confiscated the whole park for a searchlight brigade and ACAC parade. They were trying to save the gasworks there in case there was an air raid.
South have always had that knack to be able to adapt and survive. It didn't take long for the administrators to come up with a solution. That's okay, we'll just move up to Musgrave Park. So they rigged up some Hessian showers in the trees.
We trained down there under carbine lights, and when the ball hit a carbine light, they explode. There was shrapnel everywhere and blokes diving everywhere, and plenty of language.
Look, it wasn't the most glamorous place to live back then. Tough streets, you know, and you learnt the hard way.
I can remember the time when I come down here as a kid and there was fights everywhere. I used to climb the goalpost. They were a pretty wild mob. They chased the blokes down the river and they swim the river to get away from them.
Pretty well every sport you can imagine's been played here. Rugby league, rugby union, they've had basketball, had a swimming pool, speedway.
The Yanks used to play their gridiron and we used to beat them every time. They couldn't imagine how we could beat them playing their national game.
Back in those early days, I mean, this was really the focal point to the locals in this little area of West End. Davies Park was really part of their life, you know, I mean, to come down here and watch football, I mean.
It wasn't hard to get drawn into, I guess, the local rugby league landscape. Crowds of 20,000 there every Sunday. Rugby league was the only big show in Brisbane.
You could imagine how in awe I was of being able to run onto the field and thinking, shit, Mal ran on this field, and Gary Belch ran on this field, and Peter Jackson, and all these players, Johnny Elias and Norman, all these were my heroes. And being able to run on the same ground as these guys, it was special.
Well, I played second row mostly because Bill Tyke was a lock forward here. Well, it's getting a bit sissy-wise now. They got them sitting on the sideline, run them on, run them off. It makes a bit of a Sheila's game, I reckon.
When you played somebody, I could nearly guarantee that the bark they left behind was enough to give you the satisfaction that you achieved something on the day, you know.
It was a completely different game, really. You get some of the guys that played in the early 70s and then going back before that, some of those guys were serious hardheads. They were fearless. And there was traditional softening up periods, as they called it, in the first 10 minutes of a game. It was pretty well a free-for-all until one side could outpsych the other.
I remember I got sent off here once in a trial match against Western Suburbs. He said, off. I said, what for? He said, this is only a trial game and you can't tackle that hard. And I said, you silly old fusspot, yeah.
And South's just about to come out. You can see the banner up on the grandstands. These Souths players may be smaller in stature, but they're big in heart.
It was a very, very difficult night every time we turned up to train. It was never easy. We trained at 6 o'clock at night, and we worked day jobs, and we had to turn up and train.
My old man had a sand contracting business, and I used to have to go out and load several trucks for 2 loads of a Saturday morning. And when you play the game at afternoon, you're stiff as anything.
You dreaded getting to August because they used to be so cold the nights here, and with the cricket pitch in the middle, it was like concrete.
There's no comparison anymore to what we did. And when I remember Pat Phelan coming in, he'd been a bricky's labourer. No one had trained better than him. He'd be filthy, dirty. He'd know he's exhausted, you know, but he'd just absolutely put in. And no great facilities. Lucky to get a hot shower sometimes, you know.
You take players of the past, you know, not necessarily big or great, just average kids from around the area. Like, how tough was Billy Ardross, you know?
We brought Billy up to play first grade. We had a number of injuries. I said to him after the game, I said, oh, Billy, you did really good, you know, and he said, oh, yeah, he said, I was very scared today, Wayne. I said, oh, were you? I said, how'd you settle your nerves down? He said, I had a 6-pack before the game.
Then I met up with characters like Alan Bracken and Johnny Salter, all those sort of guys who initiated me, I guess.
Chris Thorley, Big Bicky Thorley. I love Big Bicky Thorley. I'd seen him play Blimber Cup for Brisbane as a halfback, and when I got here to coach him as a front rower. But look, you talk about the South spirit. He always epitomised the South spirit for me. When he played his heart out every week, he did the best he could, you know, and there was just something about this place. He was a local from here, and it meant so much to the local boys to play for South.
My dad's from West End, my grandparents were from West End. If you're from West End, you're a South. You just had to be. That's what you did, you followed the mighty Magpies.
There was a lot of different community aspects here. There was Lebanese, there was Greeks, there was Italians, but the one thing that held the community together was the football club down the road. So we all felt the affinity to Davies Park.
It was the first club built in Brisbane, and it was the most successful club in the late 60s and early 70s. It hasn't changed a great deal, believe me. And so it has strong memories for me. Yeah.
We play a game out here at Davies Park on a Sunday afternoon, and we come up here and celebrate afterwards, whether win or loss, and you know, get blind up here, you know, and have a fantastic time.
We had the only nightclub in the city on Sunday nights here in Brisbane, and this place used to rock. Back in those early days, you know, we'd have all the people from all over Brisbane here, you know.
We're dancing on tables, the music's pumping, having a few beers. It was packed. I think it was the in spot. The first year, probably they taught me how to drink and not drive.
And the Army had a shed here. We used that as a clubhouse for years and years. We had plenty of merry times in it, I can assure you.
It was a meeting place for people to come and see their team play, but just, you know, just to meet. You know, that gives you some sort of community spirit. Without community spirit, I think, you know, we're all in a bit of trouble, aren't we?
That's what this is about. That's what this community, this park is about, that it brought all those people with something in common. They mightn't have been able to speak the same language. They might, you know, come from different background and different cultures, but at the end of the day, we all had something in common, and this is it.
There's nothing flashy about South, all right, but there's nothing flashy about us. We weren't full of ourselves either, you know, so I remember Mel had the opportunity to play for South or go and play for St George. He finished up coming playing for South because all his mates were coming over here. Everybody felt comfortable here. Everyone felt at home.
You follow the leaders, like what your mates do. We play with South, C grade, then they all join the surf club, the Surfers Paradise, and you go down to the surf club. So you follow each other's company, and this is the way you fulfil your life.
We looked after each other. We go celebrate somewhere, we go together as a group, and when you see someone that, you know, might be getting in trouble, we sort of pull them into line a bit. And that was part of my upbringing, you know, all the senior players at the club, they were good leaders and put in the line if you got into trouble.
I'm in a different world now, and I miss this world because it was what it was about. It was about a club, and the club was everybody, whether you were playing first grade or third grade.
We had a lot more interest back in the game in those days, which made life a lot easier for those guys too, because they had a lot of supporters.
In those times, it was great to celebrate with the fans. We won a grand final. When we did win a grand final, there's 10,000 people here, you know, all on the field, there's marquees everywhere, and everyone's drinking and having a good time.
I remember always seeing Tank full as an old bird and crying at the end of the game when we won. A large man bawling. It wasn't just tears, he was bawling that South had won, you know, and that image has stayed with me forever. It just proves how passionate people are about this place, you know. It brings men to tears.
Look, leading into a grand final week was just something very special. You know, we used to do some road runs from time to time. We used to go through West End, or even driving the training through West End with the streamers hanging out of the shop windows. And some of the old faces, you may not know their names, but the old faces that used to come out of the shops and cheer you on as you went past.
The bakery's always full of black and white cakes and scones, and everyone decorated their front of their stores in black and white, you know. It embraced the whole community.
The thing that was talked about in every bar, every pub in West End was South Football Club and whether or not they were going to win another grand final.